people, if we haven't met before, I am Sam, the proud owner of Plant Collector Melbourne, and today we find ourselves at PCM in the workshop space because I'm going to be showing you how to make your own DIY Christmas wreath with plants. So here's a little preview out in the back, and without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get started, let us put on our apron or maybe some clothes that we don't actually mind getting dirty. So, gosh, I love the power of editing. So, my friends, I thought that this would be such a great video to get crafty, some ideas for Christmas. To be honest, I have thought about doing planty wreaths for workshops for a very long time. And it's only now when my friend has made this beautiful one that I have been inspired to make one so that you guys can also have a planty Christmas as well. So, let's talk about what we are going to need. So first off, of course, we are going to need the wreath. So my friends, this one here is one that you can buy online. I'm sure you can find some in like an arts and crafts store, but this is the wreath that we are going to be using. It is the exact same size as the one at the back. We are going to need some wire, some fishing twine, some thread, scissors. I've got here some air plants, which I think are going to look very cute on it. I guess these are pliers. Yes, pliers so that it is easy to cut the wire. Some sphagnum moss, and I am very lucky that some of the moss from PCM has actually turned green and is back alive again. So I'm going to be using this because then the wreath is going to look green. And of course, last but not least, some beautiful cuttings of some plants. So we've got here some miniature orchids. We've got a lot of Hoya. Some of them are rooted cuttings, which I do highly recommend rather than just fresh cuttings. So the more the roots, the better chance that it will take into the wreath. We have some Hoya curtisii. I think this is the Thai form. We've got a teeny tiny anthurium, which I thought I would try. And yeah, and also, yes, this one is an experiment. I don't know whether this will work or not, but we do have some jewel orchids that we are going to be taking cuttings of because these are the ones that I've had for years in the store and they've always been super leggy. So I was like, let's use them for a wreath so that they don't go in the bin or they don't die. So we've got a couple here that we can definitely use. So we are going to be grabbing our wreaths and placing it down. So we'll grab some of our moss. And of course, I'm going to make a mess. And we are going to generously layer this guy. And we're going to do it all the way around. So at the front and also out the back. And we're going to try and be as even as possible throughout the whole wreath. And what we're going to do is section by section, we are going to wrap it. So I'm going to grab our fishing line and start wrapping this guy. Actually, I think doing it one side at a time might be easier. So, just gonna wrap this way. And we're going to go wrapping through the wreath. Whoop, I'm getting stuck. And I like to use the clear fishing line just so that you don't necessarily see everything going on. So I've started to wrap one way and then I'm putting the moss on the back, trying to be as even as possible. I'm definitely making a mess, so I hope you guys are doing this in a environment where you can actually make a mess. So I'm going to flip that over. And again, I think it's easier when you do section by section at a time. Yes, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I find it easier when the twine or the fishing line is quite taut and you don't have a lot going on. So we'll just wrap it backwards. And again, going through the hoop. And just keep adding more and squishing it so that it becomes dense. And the aim here is to try and not see any of the wreath. So section by section, trying to make it as even as possible. Okay, and now I have done the full wreath, and it is a little bit messy, and I think the first time you go around, if it's uneven, there's patches, or it's just a little bit organic looking, then don't stress, because now we are going to be doing some finessing. So I'm just going to be squeezing all of the sphagnum to give it some shape, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to see any holes. If there's there's areas that are a bit too dense and you want to remove some sphagnum. And if there are any holes, we can just fill them with more sphagnum. But the first way around is definitely supposed to be rough, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And if there's some little bits and pieces that fall off, that's okay too. And hopefully you guys can see here that there is just a little spot that is bare there. So I'm just going to grab some moss, cover that up, squeeze, and then we're going to find our twine and just go over it, make our way to the spot. Lovely. And so we're just going to take a look for any gaps. Make sure to fill those puppies in, squeeze. And again, just finding our twine to lock it into place. Now, where are my scissors? There they are. And so I just have some excess twine after tying that all together. I just cut that off, leaving a little bit of the fishing line to make sure that it doesn't unravel. And just some more shaping. And at this point, it doesn't have to be super perfect, just because we are going to be grabbing all of our plants and we are still going to be, I guess, manipulating it and changing it up, just because as we put roots in, we might need more moss, we might need less moss. So it doesn't have to be, let's say, like the perfect shape just yet. But if you can get a rough idea just by squeezing and shaping a little bit, hopefully you can see the wreath. Hello. Oh my gosh, that's like perfectly my head size. So that's the size of my head. Okay, so I'm going to move a little bit of this moss just so that I have a bit more space to play. And next, so we're pretty much done with the fishing twine. We are going to be moving on to the plants. And so for this part, I prefer to use either thread or some wire. So what I shall show you, this guy is if you just want to kind of, I guess, like strap them down. But if they are cuttings and they need to be flush with the sphagnum moss and the wreath, I'll be using the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the plants and I'm going to start placing them near the wreath so that I can get an idea of what it's going to look like. So we're going to do a game plan rather than just like sticking things on and securing them in. We are definitely going to be more strategic and thinking about the intention and what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to start placing some of the plants where I think would look really beautiful. So, and then once you find its place, we can actually put it on the outside. Maybe like there. And I shall start grabbing all my plants. I might start cutting. Actually, I'll probably cut the plants last. I really want this anthurium to be like poking out of a air plant. So maybe like there, nah, maybe here. It's kind of covering the air plant. Scissors. So I'm going to cut and make it just a little bit more than what I would typically think, just because we can always cut, I guess, make it shorter, but we can't make it longer after we've cut it. So I'm just going to do that. I think I'm liking the symmetry and I'm also liking clumping. So maybe like, very cute. Okay, I think I'm happy. Okay, so another tip from me to you is that once you have placed all of the plants and you're kind of happy with it, then to take a photo. It is very important. And then once you've taken a photo or a video, in my case, then you will be putting the plants just on the outskirts of the wreath. Kind of like placeholders, if you will. Perfect. And what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the air plants first, I think. And I'm going to be using some thread because it is a lot more gentler, this guy. And I'm going to start off with just doing the air plants. And I'm going to kind of hide the twine. So put the air plant forward. And I'm just going to allow myself to have quite a bit of twine. And the reason why we put the plants to the side is so that you can actually lift the wreath without too much trouble, without all the plants falling off. And we'll just make sure that that is in place. And you can definitely use different color thread. I think black you will be able to see, but you can definitely go for something like brown, neutral color, so it's not as much of an eyesore. But for now, this will do. And you want to make sure that it is secure, so making sure that it is a tight double knot. There's one. And I'm just going to cut again the thread. And I'm just going to make sure that that is staying in place. Cool. Next one. Now these are two. How am I going to do that? And again, we'll try and go underneath all the plant leaves so that the thread is hidden. And I think I'm just going to do one at a time, I think. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And now I'm going to show you guys how to do ones with some roots, because ideally we want them to have roots. And so you can start placing them down. And I would cover the roots with some moss. And here you can either grab the twine or you can grab the clear fishing line and wrap it again. I think I want the clear twine. Just going to press that firmly. I found some more nylon, and I'm just going to make sure that all the roots are covered. So here I'm just going to start by making an anchor point and tying it in one place. Making sure that it is tight. Yep. And then wrapping it around and just making sure you're not strangling the plant's roots, but purely securing it. Okay. And then I'm just going to tie this off. Okay, so it looks like we have securely put that one on, and I'm going to show you guys how we are going to be using the wire. So the reason why I would use thread versus wire versus the fishing line, the fishing line is kind of so that you don't see, it's almost like it's clear and then you don't see things. This is if you wanted to pin cuttings on so they don't necessarily have a root system. And then the thread I personally just use for the air plants. So for this one, I'm going to be using on this Curtisii tie form, and I'm just going to pin him in. So I'm grabbing this. That should be enough. And I'm just going to make a U shape and securely pin this guy in place. How do I want him to go? Maybe like that. And I'll just lift this guy for you so you can see so far. And I'm just going to be pinning this guy here in a U shape. And in that goes. So it is secure. Perfect. And I'll give it a little bit of a shake just to double check. Looking good. And so if you'll excuse me, I'll just continue to do this for all the rest of the plants. Alrighty, my friends, I have put all of the plants on the wreath. And so it is currently looking like this. Isn't it cute? And I think that once you have kind of used all of the rooted cuttings and you've covered all of the roots, the pinning is like the easiest part. So don't feel discouraged. You will need a couple of hours to do it. I do think that it does take quite some time, especially if it's your first time, but it does get faster as soon as you start to pin stuff on. So right now, I'm just going to be covering and doing the last touches. So I'm going to be squeezing. I'm going to probably wrap around with the fishing twine one more time to make it a little bit more better shaped. And then after that, I might trim the moss as well. And yeah, so let's start that process. And we're just going to do a final twine all the way around. So I'm going to secure, there goes the vivarium, this little top bit here. So I'm going to always start with an anchor point, meaning to tie off the fishing line with a double knot. So that's where I start, and I'm just going to make sure that this is taut, and I'm going to go all the way around the wreath one last final time. And hopefully now it'll start to clean itself up. And I'm just going to make sure that it's pretty taut. Making sure to be careful of all of the plants that were going underneath the leaves. And also while you're doing this, just making sure that you're happy with the placement of the plants. And again, underneath the leaves. Okay, now what am I doing? I'm going to secure the last bit. I'm just going to find some twine to secure it on, probably that guy. Ideally, I would like to secure it at the back so that you don't see as much. Yep, I think I can do that. Perfecto. All right, so we've gone around the whole thing once with the fish line, and I've just cut off all of the excess bits of the fishing line. And one more time, I'm just going to squeeze and shape. There are definite like bulgy bits and thin bits I can feel throughout the wreath, but that's okay. It's not meant to be perfect. And so last minute shaping. This definitely reminds me of my Kokedama class. And just, I have so much sphagnum everywhere. And now, finishing touches wise, I'm going to be trimming off any of the excess sphagnum. And just being careful not to cut the plants. Also watching out for the roots, because of course we don't want to be cutting the roots. Looks like it's all coming together. So the back is looking really good, if I do say so myself. This is the best part because we get to channel our inner hairdresser, shaping it. And I'm hoping you guys don't see any spots of the wreath, hopefully. Okay, so that is the back. It's looking a lot cleaner now. And now, trimming the front, which I think is going to be more challenging. Don't cut the leaves, don't cut the leaves. Don't cut the roots, don't cut the roots. Whoa, almost got the roots. Don't get cocky, Sam. Yep, I got cocky. I did the leaf. Yeah. Do I love it? I do. Cute. Ah, ta-da! She is done and she is looking cute. Here, let me give you guys a close-up. So my friends, let's have a little bit of a chat on how to take care of your beautiful plant wreath. And so one of them is, because a lot of them are going to be cuttings, of course, depending on what you have put in the wreath, that you are going to try and keep it moist, wet, whether that is spraying it or dunking it in water and then just watering it every couple of days. But you do not want this to dry out because a lot of them are cuttings that require a lot more water than normal plants. And so when it comes to picking the plants of what you want to put on the wreath, I highly, highly recommend epiphytic plants, meaning that in nature they are on trees and their root system isn't necessarily in soil. It can be aerial roots in the air, plants that love to climb and not necessarily are on the bottom of the forest or rainforest floor. And so here we have air plants, Hoya, orchids, and these are definitely more suited to putting these on a plant wreath. I am so excited to see how this guy ends up growing into itself. So this is a very early stage at the very beginning, and it will get better over time. So hopefully we'll be able to send you some photos of how it goes. Look, if some cuttings don't make it, that's absolutely fine. We can always replace them. And the great thing about it is that you can add or remove any of the plants as you see fit. But hopefully it'll start to look more like the one in the back in a couple of months. So that pretty much wraps up this week's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am hoping that this is a fun video, something to inspire you to put some more planty things into your beautiful home this Christmas. If you do end up making one, I would love to hear how you went down below, so make sure that we have a little bit of a chat. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Mwah!